Okay, so here's the deal. My friend, let's call her Sarah, and I have been tight since high school. We've been through everything together, breakups, makeups, you name it. So when she got engaged, I was over the moon for her. Fast forward to a few months before the wedding. Sarah sends out the invitations, and I'm psyched to RSVP. But then, out of nowhere, she texts me saying that she's had to cut down the guest list due to budget constraints, and unfortunately, I didn't make the cut. I was devastated. I get that weddings are expensive and all, but to uninvite me after we've been friends for so long? Ouch. Fast forward again to the wedding day. I see all these photos on social media, and it looks like a fairy tale. But here's the kicker, Sarah texts me later that week asking for money to help cover the costs of the wedding. Apparently, they went over budget, and she's asking all the guests who didn't attend to chip in. I was floored. Not only did she uninvite me, but now she expects me to foot the bill for a wedding I didn't even get to go to? I told her no way. I refused to pay a single dime. But now she's saying I'm being selfish and unsupportive. Am I the asshole here, Reddit? Or is Sarah out of line for expecting me to pay for her mistake? More context, this happened about a week ago, and I tried talking to her about it again. She relented that the two have been having financial struggles, and this time she respected me not wanting to pay for her wedding. However, she still wants me to consider helping out in other ways, like pitching in for the honeymoon or contributing to future expenses. I appreciate that she's acknowledging her financial difficulties, but it still feels like she's trying to guilt trip me into footing the bill for her wedding in some form or another. I'm torn because, on one hand, I want to be supportive and help her out during a tough time, but on the other hand, I can't shake off the feeling that I'm being taken advantage of. I'm not sure how to proceed from here. Should I continue to stand my ground and refuse any further financial involvement? Or should I try to find a compromise that works for both of us? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Comments, Speedy89T, no, you're not. Asking for money, especially from people who didn't get invited, is one of the most absurd things I've ever heard in my entire life. Affectionate Poet 4586, it's even worse. Op was invited, then got cut, then goggled at the wedding photos on social media, and then got hit up for money. Remayan, uninvited for budget constraints, but still went over budget, and now asking an uninvited guest to pay to cover the budget that she was uninvited for because of the budget. Skeptical, my head is spinning. Theen Ed 4 We Ed 22, asking the guests who didn't attend for money. They aren't guests if they didn't attend lol. She is just begging regular people for money. It takes a very entitled selfish type of person to even want an extravagant wedding anyways, so it's no surprise she is entitled and selfish. That's shit for rich people. If you have to budget for it at all, you can't afford it, period. Trailsia, NTA, and I hope you know you are. I would stop this friendship entirely. Send her a few laughing emoticons/gifs and then block her. One of the tackiest things I have ever heard. Cat_own up, thank you for your support and understanding. It's been a roller coaster of emotions dealing with this situation. To add a bit more context, Sarah and I had always been there for each other, so her decision to uninvite me really caught me off guard. I tried to rationalize it, thinking maybe she was under a lot of stress or pressure to cut costs, but it still hurt nonetheless. I don't want to cut her off as she helped me through some tough times. Is there anything else I can do in the situation? Trailsia, no problem smile. I normally don't advise people to troll people, but in this case, I would personally troll her in the most childish of ways with laughing emoticons and memes, not saying you should. Wild guess, but you must also have helped her through tough times, so I'd say you're probably even or more than even. This friendship will never be the same. You will resent her for uninviting you. She will resent you for not paying. I'd focus on making new friends or spending more time with other people. Stop clinging to this fake friendship. Deleted. I wonder how the other uninvited guests feel about being asked for money. Maybe it's a tradition somewhere? But I think it's tacky AF. Skewwagon. Okay, a reality check, please. Who, being an adult and in their right mind, expects other people to pay for their luxuries? Mind you, a wedding, guests, honeymoon, whatever, it is not a necessity, it's a luxury. You have to budget, and if you can't budget, why the hell should other people pay for that? Would she pay for your vacation so you can have some fun because you're tired from work? No? What's the difference? That's just crazy. She shows you zero respect and zero care for your feelings and just trying to use and guilt trip you. And she literally threw you out of her wedding and still feels it's okay to ask you for money, like you're a doormat. That's just odd behavior. It's very selfish to care about your well-being instead of catering to other people's expensive wants. Yes. You may tell her you're very selfish and you shouldn't be friends. Oop, thank you for your reality check. You're absolutely right, expecting others to pay for luxuries like weddings and honeymoons is unreasonable, especially when it comes at the expense of someone's feelings and boundaries. It's been a tough pill to swallow, realizing that Sarah may not value our friendship as much as I thought she did. The fact that she uninvited me from her wedding and then tried to guilt trip me into covering expenses feels like a betrayal of trust. I've come to realize that I need to prioritize my own well-being and not allow myself to be taken advantage of. It's clear that Sarah's behavior is selfish and disrespectful, and I shouldn't feel obligated to cater to her expensive wants at my own expense. It's going to be hard, but I think it's time to reevaluate this friendship and set some boundaries moving forward. Your words have given me the clarity and confidence to stand my ground. Thank you for your support. Update. Hey everyone, Op here with an update about refusing to pay for my friend's wedding because she uninvited me. Firstly, I want to express my gratitude to all 700 plus of you who took the time to read my story and offer your thoughts. Your support and perspectives have been invaluable during this challenging time. Since my last update, there have been some significant developments. Sarah saw the post and confronted me. Things got heated. There was yelling, emotions ran high, and in the end, I made the difficult decision to go no contact with Sarah. While it was a tough choice to make, I realized that the toxicity in our relationship had reached a point where it was no longer healthy for either of us. Despite my initial hopes for reconciliation, it became clear that certain underlying issues in our friendship needed to be addressed and resolved before any meaningful progress could be made. Going no contact was not a decision I made lightly, but rather one born out of necessity for my own well-being and mental health. It's never easy to distance yourself from someone you care about, but sometimes it's necessary for personal growth and healing. I want to thank everyone once again for their support and encouragement throughout this journey. Your words have been a source of strength and comfort during a challenging time in my life. Moving forward, I'm focused on prioritizing self-care and surrounding myself with positive influences. While it's sad to say goodbye to a friendship that once meant so much to me, I'm hopeful that this decision will ultimately lead to greater happiness and fulfillment in the long run. Thank you all for being a part of my story and for your unwavering support. Comments. Uncle is dead. Sarah saw the post and confronted me. Things got heated. If she was anything but embarrassed about her choosing beggar ways and apologetic for how she treated you, she is no friend. Foggy days and nights. It's so ridiculous when people get angry about being exposed because no real names are used, 99% of the time, and no way for the guilty to be rounded up and derided. Uncle is dead. Narcissists can't stand the idea that anyone would think badly of them. Even if it's online and relatively anonymous. Someone might recognize it and know her actions don't reflect kindly on herself. Cat_own up. Some of you also didn't asking for her contact info, but I don't think that is the mature thing to do. I just want to move past this. Altruistic cable car. Yeah, if you handed that out you'd be a massive ah. Sorry about having to go NC, but seems like it was the only way forward to keep yourself sane. Best of luck. Cat_own up. It hurts because she helped me when I was battling depressed and low on money, but thank you for your understanding and support. It wasn't an easy decision to go no contact, but sometimes it's necessary for self-preservation. Your words mean a lot to me, and I appreciate your well wishes. Here's to prioritizing our mental health and moving forward towards a brighter future. Take care. No_Wallaby_5110. Look, I know you hate giving up on a friendship, but she really isn't much of a friend to you. It's not as much of a loss as you might think. I had to let go of many friendships that were very one-sided because I thought that's what a friend would do. I was very surprised to learn, when I let go, the other person didn't seem to care at all while I was devastated over the loss. Ironically enough, I was at my dad's funeral, sad at all the friends that didn't show up, and I saw a woman I never would have expected to see in a million years. We were never friends. We never got along. But she came. I asked her why, privately. She said, "We may not ever have agreed about anything, but this was your dad. I lost mine a few years ago and I remembered how it hurts, and I wanted to tell you I'm sorry. Truly sorry. If you need anything, please call." That's when it hit me, my frenemy was a better friend than my friends. It's been 12 years. She stopped by and checked on my mom several times before she passed away. She came to her funeral too. She helped my siblings, who lived nearer to my parents' home than I, find a realtor to sell the house, get help cleaning it out, etc. That is what a friend should be. I never asked her to do those things, she just did them. Not because she liked me as a person, but because she was a caring human being that saw a need and stepped in to fill it. If a friend can't do that as a minimum, they are not a true friend. Ask yourself honestly, does Sarah pass that minimum threshold test? If not, let her go. Don't mourn. Move on. Find better friends. Knitted Yeti. Apparently, they went over budget, and she's asking all the guests who didn't attend to chip in. I cannot think of a single person I know that would be this classless. Not saying they don't exist. Just that I'm grateful that none of them exist in my vicinity. Lemon Leaf. I also cannot imagine someone doing this, but I guess they exist and I'm just lucky I haven't met one. Seriously, she asked everyone who did not attend to chip in? I can't wrap my head around it. If she asked from the guests who were there, sure, a little tacky, but I can see the logic. But those who were non-guests? Why? Relentless Dandelion. Someone cheated, and it wasn't the koala. I bet she already asked the people who went and didn't get enough takers. Chbacker. In the most cynical take you can have on wedding receptions, the bride and groom are exchanging money, for the food and drink at the reception, for large gifts. My wife's aunt and uncle got us a very expensive set of flatware that I still use very cautiously because it's that expensive, and we never would have bought on our own. Plus people are spending money to come into town as well. They spent money on Sarah, but it's in the form of gifts to start the marriage out. Asking for cash on top of that is just so crass. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Caught my wife cheating with our neighbor in the house we just bought. Now I'm a single dad living off-grid on our farm. My wife, 26 female, and I, 29 male, got married and rented our first apartment for 5 years. We bought our first house when our child was a year and a half old. It was a farmhouse that was in foreclosure. The previous owner had split it into a duplex due to the financial hardships they faced. There was another couple living in half of the house when we first moved in. They had 90 days left to vacate. We didn't get to meet or see them at first, but the reality agent told me they homeschooled their kids and lived here for years. Everything was blissful at first. My wife helped me to start unpacking and settling into our new home together. Even our little boy helped us to carry in his toys one at a time. We could finally own animals, so within the first month we got a horse, cow, and chickens. The 3 of us spent time with our animals. My wife and I took turns riding the horse with our son. While we were out, enjoying one of the last days I had off work, something caught my wife's eye. I matched her gaze and saw a very healthy looking man. He was making chopping firewood look easy. I assumed he was our neighbor, but even though he saw us, he didn't say anything. I wondered if he was bitter with me for buying the house that he had been renting for his wife and children for so long. I wondered if they had found a new home, or if they were desperate to stay where they were. I was a nice man, and if they wanted to introduce themselves, they could. My wife was still staring at him, so I told her to stop. She blushed. I thought about introducing us, but I just wanted my wife to stay away from Mr. Woodchop. While I was at work the next week, my wife told me she got to hang out with the neighbor for a bit. I asked her which one, which caught her off guard for some reason. She admitted it was Mr. Pooler, while Mrs. Pooler was upstairs taking a nap with their kids. She always napped at the same time every day because her medicine exhausted her. I was uncomfortable and she looked embarrassed. I asked what they did, and she said they just played cards and talked about the benefits of living in the countryside. I thought it was weird and I told her not to spend time with him alone. She rolled her eyes, smiled, and told me not to worry. I asked her if she thought it was funny to spend time alone with another married man. She put her serious face on, but I felt like she was pleased that I was jealous. She told me I needed to trust her and that she would never cheat on me. I told her I didn't want her to spend time with him alone. She agreed, but only because she saw how upset I was getting. I didn't believe for 1 second that she understood my reasoning behind it. She denied any wrongdoing. I was off work unexpectedly one day, a week after my wife hung out with the neighbor. I answered a knock at the door. My wife tried to tell me she would answer it, but I was closer, so I answered it. It was Mr. Pooler, with a bouquet of flowers. I took them, confused. He stammered to explain that they were a goodbye gift from his wife. My wife accepted them, looking quite embarrassed. I told him it was nice to finally meet him, and I introduced myself as my wife's husband, putting my arm around her shoulders and squeezing. She was bright red, staring at the flower petals. Mr. Pooler swallowed hard and wished us a good evening before fleeing. I put my wife on the spot by asking her why he brought her flowers. She stammered, saying she didn't know why. I told her I didn't believe they were from Mrs. Pooler, and she had the nerve to tell me that I was overreacting and thinking too hard about this. She wanted me to drop it, and reminded me that I had to work the next day. I was officially suspicious that something was happening between my wife and the neighbor. I installed cameras inside and outside of our house that night, refusing to go to bed until I was done. My wife hated this. She asked me if they would take up all of our solar power, and I said no. She asked me if someone could hack into our camera feed, and I said no. She asked if I could watch her remotely, and I said yes. I got a live feed from it on my phone. She seemed very displeased for some reason, but tried to recover by saying it made her feel safer. I started watching my wife while I worked. For a week and a half, nothing interesting happened, and I just found it nice to be able to check in on my wife and son while I worked. I started to check the live camera feed less often. Weeks later, I decided to check the feed while I ate lunch. My son was sleeping in his crib while my wife was typing on her phone. She set it down, took a pie out of the oven, and headed next door with a big smile on her face. She was let inside quickly. She was on their side of the house for a while. I could not believe it. When I got home, I asked her what she did, and she said she talked to Mrs. Pooler about homeschooling. I didn't believe her, so I went next door, despite my wife trying to say that Mrs. Pooler was sleeping now. I thought it was weird that she was trying to tell me she was sleeping. I knocked on the door, and was greeted by Mr. Pooler. I asked to speak with Mrs. Pooler so I could corroborate my wife's story. He was immediately defensive, and said I didn't need to speak to his wife, I could just speak to him. I decided to jump in full force and tell him I knew he was sleeping with my wife. It was like he was surprised I said it, but had a planned defense. He smiled nervously and said that was an unfair accusation. That's when his wife started coming down the stairs, rubbing her eyes. She asked what was going on. I asked her if she spoke to my wife earlier in the day, but her husband yelled over me, saying he already answered my question. Then he slammed the door in my face. I heard them yelling inside, but no one came outside to talk to me. I slept on the couch that night, unsure of what to do. My wife only maintained the same story she told me before. For a few days, nothing interesting happened. I would check the camera feed at work, and my wife was at home. Then, when I least expected it, my wife went back over to their house at the same time as before, this time with cookies. She was inside for 30 minutes before I decided to go home and see what was happening. I figured since I own the house now, I could get away with opening their front door. As soon as I did, I saw my wife and Mr. Pooler having sex on their couch. My wife wailed no, and started crying immediately, just as quickly as she started trying to put her clothes back on. Mr. Pooler was frantically trying to dress too, furious with me for opening his front door. The yelling and crying and my claiming to be right all along caused Mrs. Pooler to wake up and come downstairs with the kids. They weren't fully dressed yet, so she immediately assumed the worst. I told her I just caught them having sex, which really sent her into a spiral of grief. She accused him of breaking vows, breaking her heart, breaking her trust, and breaking apart the family. The kids started crying due to the stress of the situation. We both kicked out our spouses. Despite their lies, objections, and grief. My wife tried to say it was a stupid mistake, blaming the temptation of having another man right next door, instead of taking accountability for the fact that she cheated on me, her loving, loyal husband and provider. I screamed it in her face. I told her she cheated on me, since she was having trouble accepting this truth. I told her I wouldn't allow myself to be disrespected in such a way, and I wouldn't call her my wife ever again. In the midst of the yelling and sadness, I ushered her back to our side of the house and forced her to pack her clothes. She was mortified. She didn't want to leave the place we just bought and called home. She didn't want to leave our son, and didn't know where she would go. I told her App should take care of her, since whatever they had was more important than 2 long-term marriages with children. She sobbed, shaking her head, admitting that the affair wasn't as valuable as maintaining a happy and successful marriage. She begged me for forgiveness. Just one more chance to be my wife and have the family and life we expected to have. I told her that life and expectation was gone. The love was, too. I didn't want to love her, because she chose to love another man. My wife was a shaking, sobbing mess when she left at the same time as App, with their cars packed. It was a terrible, life-altering moment to see her drive away, knowing it was within my power to stop her from leaving. Weeks later, my wife had called twice to talk to our son, but never told me where she was or what plan she'd come up with. We, ex-Mrs. Pooler and I, found out that they moved into an apartment together out of state. I was really surprised that neither of them showed up to the court hearings. Not even for custody. It was like they encouraged each other not to care. They didn't try to get custody or even visitation. Just before the 90-day limit was up, I agreed to let her and her kids stay on a yearly lease, for less rent per month. Now I'm proud to say I live a completely self-sufficient life off the grid with my kids on our farm. Our exes split less than 2 years after moving in together. After losing all legal rights to their children.